All right, it's 11:15. We'll go ahead and get started with the work session that we have with Meridian Police Department. Justin?
Good morning, commissioners. Good to see you and welcome to the commission meeting. I just wanted to do a little brief intro before we hand the time over to the Meridian Police Department. We've been in contact and coordination with the City of Meridian for several months now, discussing a new initiative that they have related to license plate readers and how that those could be mounted on some of ACHD's hardware out there in the transportation network. I had a lot of great conversations with them. As you know, ACHD works really hard to coordinate with our law enforcement partners and support them as best we can. So I'll hand it over to them for more details. We do have a draft agreement ready to go if that is the commission's intent as soon as next week on the commission agenda, if you so choose. So wanted to let you know we've made some progress there. If you have more questions, if there's any concerns, we're glad to pause that, have a review, discuss it in any way you'd like to move forward. With that, I'll hand it over to them. They're the experts on this topic.
Thanks, Justin. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Captain Burl Stokes with the Meridian Police Department, and my current assignment, I'm over our investigations division, which runs our current license plate reader program. So the City of Meridian has had the program for approximately 3 years. We have 16 cameras deployed, and they're on city infrastructure, so primarily city light poles. So the program has been successful to some degree, but those locations are not ideal for a few reasons. Mostly having to do with how the camera orients to the lanes of travel and then the lighting, certainly at night. So why we're working with Justin and trying to move or gain access to put our cameras on ACHD infrastructure is to get better utilization for the cameras that we already have. And the cameras are, which I'm sure you're familiar with, they've been around a very long time, but relatively new to the Treasure Valley in Idaho, but there are cameras all over the state, some of them which have been up for a long time. But they're on infrastructure and they passively collect, all the license plates from the rear of the vehicle as they pass through an intersection, and they're connected to the NCIC database, which talks to those cameras twice a day and tells them, hey, we're looking for this license plate or this car for this reason. And then we also use them. So like we might get a hit on a stolen vehicle or a vehicle that's related to like a homicide or something like that. And then they'll also allow us to put a plate that we're looking for an investigation in that system. And then it'll tell us if that car, passes one of our cameras. So that's basically, how they work in a nutshell. The challenges have really been the locations. And when this started here in in Ada County, there's a lot of cameras in Canyon County. All of the agencies were going to move towards these. And we are the only agency that moved 3 years ago. There are some other agencies now in Ada County that have some cameras. I don't know how many or where they're placed. But we definitely have the most in our county. We've had a couple of recent significant crime issues in Meridian where camera placement has played a role in us not capturing that vehicle. So that's why we're here, and we would really like to have the ability to put them on, infrastructure where they're better locations. We have policy, procedure, training. We'll be completely compliant with the new state law that was just passed that goes into effect on July 1st. And as Justin said, we've worked on a licensing agreement between the City of Meridian and ACHD. And so that's kind of where we're at today. And I would stand for any questions that you might have.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I was wondering if this had anything to do with the program that we've discussed a time or two or three with other entities where the camera readers were being used to capture data immediately after an Amber Alert was cut loose. Is that what one of the things these are for?
Yes. So yes, sir. So they would help us in that event. So an Amber Alert goes out with a vehicle description and ideally with a license plate, and the cameras have pretty good capability at recognizing vehicle description, even if the plate isn't there or there is no plate or it's obstructed in some way, or certainly if we have a plate. So for instance, we get an Amber Alert that a child was taken from Walmart in a white F-150 pickup truck at this time. We could go to a camera, hopefully in that, relatively close in that location, and it could tell us any white F-150s that went through there. And then we could get those plates if they had a plate that was showing, and then we could start running down leads there. Or if we had the exact plate, we could know that the vehicle was at that location at that time and then get resources there.
To continue, Madam President, I remember when the Ada County Sheriff came to us about this, and they are using our polls, aren't they? Okay, so which is great. My last question is, how long does this data, how long is it retained in your servers before it's wiped?
So our current cameras, the data is stored on the camera itself, and it has a 60-day lifespan. It sits there for 60 days and then overwrites itself. Now, if we get something we need to use, we'll go pull it off the camera, if it's evidence, and keep it, but it's a 60-day retention.
Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just curious, and maybe it's for Justin, what's the installation process? I mean, these are probably heavily trafficked roads and.
Yeah, so, and I would defer to Justin on the specifics, but there's two types of cameras. The current ones we have are AC powered cameras. So you get them on the position on the pole that you want them on, and then you have to have access to the power, and I know that there's several different organizations have power in those poles. And so I think it's finding the right way to connect it. And then there's solar cameras, but as we've worked through this process, the solar camera where we were initially going may not be the best option. So we would have to work through that AC power.
Yeah. Yeah, Madam President. Just I'm curious, is it done by ACHD forces then, or how is that? What's that
No,
look like? Yeah.
Madam President, members of the commission, Commissioner Nielsen. No, we would essentially the installation, the maintenance, the upkeep, the data storage, everything associated with the camera system, it would be the responsibility of the Meridian Police Department. They will coordinate with our team on installation. We'll review the locations and things like that. There are standards associated with these types of things that we would ensure are kept. On the power issue, the way the agreement is currently drafted, we would prefer that the city of Meridian locate their own power source. Oftentimes there are light poles or other things within the vicinity that are reasonable to access. The agreement does allow for potential tap into AC power from ACHD, and we would work the payment and things like that out through the process. So there's all of those details would be anticipated. When it comes to installation, certainly we always encourage this type of work to be done in less busy times, including our own crews. I mean, it's not an emergency work to put these up, so hopefully they happen off peak. All the necessary traffic control, all of that would happen through our permitting process.
Thank you.
Madam
Commissioner
President,
McKay.
may I, Justin, I have a question for you and then a couple of questions for Captain Stokes here. Just kind of following on what Commissioner Goldthorpe asked about, I believe it was a few years ago that the Ada County Sheriff's Office came to us. They wanted to put some cameras on our infrastructure. We worked out a specific agreement with them about what they could and couldn't do. And it's my recollection that we discovered that they weren't necessarily living up to that agreement. What was the outcome of that? Where does that stand right now?
Yeah, Madam President, members of the commission, I'm not aware of a breach of the agreement with Ada County. I'd have to get more details,
So
sir,
we
on
do still
that.
have Ada County cameras?
Yeah, we have agreements in place with the city of Boise related to some camera systems I do not believe were ever installed. There are agreements in place with Ada County. This is a similar process through Ada County where they've asked for some of the sheriff's office to be installed. I know we had a minor issue with some power access, but it wasn't a major thing or any breach that I'm aware of. I'll have to look into that, sir. and
Okay,
see
so
what I
those
can
are
find out.
ongoing. We do have cameras in place.
Yeah, we do have agreements with other agencies with things attached to our poles, yes,
Okay.
including Verizon, who has some, we have agreements with Verizon for some infrastructure that is attached to our poles. We have various agreements with various different agencies and entities related to attachments to ACHD infrastructure. And it's, the typical situation is it's a license agreement, and then we require the whoever the person is or entity that we have the agreement with to maintain and operate and ensure that everything is
Okay.
done
And
correctly.
it's my recollection that we were concerned about, potential use of data questions or concerns, and that was included in the agreement, was it not, in the license agreement?
Yes, I believe all that is included in the license agreement, specifically with the city of Meridian. ACHD takes no responsibility at all for the data collected, the management of that data, the how that data is interpreted or used legally. And so essentially we own the infrastructure, the poles and mast arms. We are allowing them to attach a piece of equipment there, and they have to operate it and maintain it per our agreement and any other law that may exist under the books that they would have to operate it under.
Okay, good. Thank you. Then, Captain, I do have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. So the question was asked, you mentioned that the data is stored on the camera itself, and yet the department does access the data remotely. So what's involved there? Because there's obviously a remote data stream. How is that data handled?
Yeah, and I'm probably the least tech savvy person here. But there's a system, we use, our current cameras are called Recore. And so the cameras can be accessed, via the internet through cellular signals to see what the camera captured or didn't capture. It's my understanding all of that data sits on that hard drive, I guess, on the camera. And then we interface with it, remotely from this portal. In fact, we asked our detective that kind of runs this on our way over here. It's not in a cloud or anything like that. Now, we could certainly get you really specific information from the company if you would like as to how that all works, but I would have to have somebody more technically savvy to explain it.
Okay, sure. So then the data that's remotely accessed, how is that data handled? How is it held? How long is it held? And so on.
So assuming I understand this correctly, so the camera has the information for 60 days and we reach out and ask the camera what it has. And so after 60 days, if we haven't asked it, that's gone. When the officer logs in to look at it or gets an alert, it tracks them that, okay, this person, has a sign in, they're logged in, it has an audit trail, they accessed it, they have to put the purpose they accessed it for, and it maintains that in perpetuity as far as the auditing, as I understand. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. I guess I'm just thinking, okay, they access data and now you have it on a computer at your office. And then I assume if it's information related to an ongoing crime or what have you, it's obviously stored in some way. But the concern, of course, would be about additional data that might be scooped up in the course of that. What happens to that? Or is there a way, or is it partitioned and so on? How's that data handled?
So the only data that would be preserved long term is if it was uniquely tied to an investigation. So we had, this robbery occurred. We went to the camera. We asked it, what does it know about this plate or vehicle description? And we get that information, and then we will take that out of the system, like a photograph of it with the time the car passed the camera and all that kind of stuff. The cameras also will take a short video clip, I believe. And so we'll keep that as part of that investigation. But if there was the car that went ahead of that car and the car that went behind that car, we're going to see those, but that's not what we're capturing or keeping. And it's just going to the whole thing will get overridden. It's like on a loop. So the data doesn't stay forever. We have to keep it if we want to keep it, if that makes sense. Like a
Okay.
surveillance video.
Then finally, how many cameras are you intending to put up?
Well, we currently have 16. We would certainly like to expand to many more cameras in the future, but they're very expensive and, budgets are what budgets are. So at this point in time, this would be a very slow process to move our current cameras to better locations. In working with Justin, we wanted to make a licensing agreement that we didn't have to come back here every 2 years and say, we want to put a camera here or there. So we've developed a plan for 100 cameras around the city. But that will take a long, long time to achieve. So currently it's just 16. And like any other city that brings these online, we're looking at the best use is to build kind of a perimeter to your city, because we're looking for, people that have come into our city and commit a crime and then leave, those pass-through cameras. But that's roughly where we're at, is about 100 cameras in total build out at this point.
Over what, the next 2 years or something?
Oh, I just budget wise, I would think this is going to take many years, because they're expensive.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're looking at maybe 10 or 12 or 15 a year, something like that?
I would hope, I'll be long retired, but I would hope we would have these built out, in that 5 to 7 year range. That would be great. But that's a lot of ongoing cost. And it'll take some time.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Goldberg.
One last question. That was if this particular program will have any similarity to the pilot program that we approved for the city of Boise with the red light running cameras.
No, I can answer our cameras. Our cameras in no way are equipped or set up or we have any intention to write tickets based on those or anything like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Nelson.
No, I just want to say thank you for coming, and it's not an action item, but I would be amenable to seeing the license agreement next week. So I
Yeah.
just want to put that out there.
Any other questions? Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you coming, and to reiterate that this is a system that you all already have in place and in use, and this is just a better vantage point putting it on our infrastructure. So I also look forward to seeing the draft agreement.
Yeah, thank you so much, commissioners. We'll go ahead and plan on bringing that draft agreement before you on your consent agenda for next week, and it can be pulled off if you have further questions, and glad to answer those. It has the full agreement and the full list of locations. As the captain said, it won't be every location installed immediately, but we wanted to provide a comprehensive list so you were aware of where they would potentially be installed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. All right, so it's 11:32. We'll go ahead and move into the pre-commission agenda. I don't have a president's report today. Are there any general housekeeping or agenda items the commission would like to discuss?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
I do have some questions on item number 6 on the consent agenda, so if we have a couple minutes, it would
Okay,
be
go
helpful
ahead.
to discuss those.
We'll go ahead and discuss that.
Hello, Madam President, Commissioner.
Thank you. Director, this is the McMillan Road and Black Cat Road intersection, and it's a supplemental agreement increasing the contract amount on the design of this. I guess as I was looking through this, first of all, of course, it's looking like the design costs were now almost 50% over budget, or at least 50% over the original agreement for doing the design of this. But we're apparently at 99% design, and yet we're going back to redesign some irrigation facilities. And I'm just curious how that happened. How it happens that we're at this stage of the design and we've got these, irrigation stuff, that's basic. It's been there for hundreds of years. And I'm concerned, how did we get to this point? What is it that caused us to need to redo this stuff at the 11th hour?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. Commissioner McKinney. ACHD has been approached by a developer in that area who would be to enter into a cooperative development agreement in which they would do some work, including the relocation of that. This allows us to just coordinate with them through that design process so that we get a design that we want to see, that they would then build a portion of that project. And so that's what these funds are intended to do. We've also been asked to ensure that we can keep that intersection open during construction. And so this will be looking at that construction phase. And how do we have a temporary road or whatever that can continue to operate through the construction phase. So these are just new information that's come up in the most recent days. Our development team is working through that cooperative agreement, and it will be coming forward in the near future as well, that we would be working on that.
Okay, so let me see if I get this right. The changes to the irrigation facilities are for the benefit of or at the request of a developer
Mhm.
who's developing nearby. Likewise, the construction phasing also is primarily for the benefit of that developer. Is that pretty much what's happening?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I wouldn't, the construction phasing, no, that is something that's that we made a change and want to ensure that there's access through that intersection throughout the construction period. So that is a modification from our perspective, but the majority of this change is to work through that cooperative development agreement and coordinate our current design. We weren't going to relocate that irrigation in the same way that will occur. It's better if it happens as this development occurs, and where it's going to be relocated will be better for the public. So we just want to have the funds in order to work through that design processes.
So it strikes me that in a case like this, where we're redesigning portions of a project for the benefit of a particular developer, that the redesign would fall, the costs of the redesign would fall upon the developer, not the district. I guess that's my first question. Am I wrong on this?
Commissioners, thank you so much, Madam President, Commissioner McKinney. So this is a unique cooperative development agreement that we're working on and that we're working on with the developer. The design portion is ACHD's responsibility as we finish that up. And the right-of-way acquisition is largely complete. The developer in the draft agreement that we're working on right now is making a $1.5 million financial contribution to the project. So essentially a non-refundable, non-impact fee refundable contribution to the project, which supports going forward. They're also going to agree in the draft agreement to essentially manage the construction of the project, which removes some of that burden from ACHD. So the developer's making a significant contribution on this project. The redesign related to a change that a property owner would make, it's not atypical that we would do that. It happens to be a developer in this instance, but let's say something else were happening on a project and we needed to make a minor modification, we would go ahead and do that. Some of it's just pulling that design information out of the plans and then putting the actuals in there of what's actually going to happen. This is one of these unique situations where we have a project going forward, we have it designed, we're moving forward, and then a developer comes in and essentially says, I want to make this project go faster. So they're going to end up building this project 1 year in advance of when we would have been able to build it, especially because of this financial contribution that they're making. The other terms in the development, the cooperative development agreement, have them fronting the entire cost of the project, and then we would come back the next year and pay the cost that we would have had to pay in that year. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts and benefits to ACHD as part of this deal that we are contemplating with the developer. And if for some reason all this falls apart, the design money that you're talking about today for that redesign, and let's say it doesn't need to happen that way, we would just not expend those funds. So we're essentially getting ready and trying to bring all this together. And if it falls apart, we just wouldn't expend those funds in this agreement today.
Okay, so the 1.5 million that we're talking about from the developer is directed solely to construction, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so what we're doing is we're essentially saying in exchange for this 1.5 million that the developer's kicking in that allows us to do the project earlier, we're going to go ahead and take the hit on this redesign to redesign these irrigation structures and so on. Is that Is that fair?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I don't think it's quite that type of trade. It's all part of this larger process. But yes, I mean, I think that's a fair characterization that we need to modify our design to match what they are planning to build and have already been approved to build through their development. Our design was anticipated prior to the development even being approved. And so that's why we're just kind of truing the design up to what has been needed by ACHD and then subsequently approved by the city of Meridian and by ACHD through the development process.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Those were my same questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here he is. Yeah, I just was curious, maybe Shandy knows, for the ACHD Connect, when we'll start seeing some of those emails or those communications. So, this is in the category of be careful what you wish for. Yeah.
Madam President and Commissioner Nielsen, you'll actually receive your first report today.
Oh.
So we have been working with CICAC Fix on making those reports more valuable and working through a couple of things on those. So how you'll receive them today will be all of anything that's happened since we launched. And then you'll start receiving them from there every week. And then that will just be for the week prior. So you'll see on there that some of them are still open and then some of them are closed. If they're closed, it'll have the response that was given, the resolution on that. If it's still open, you won't see a resolution on it. And then if you have any other questions based on the report that you're seeing, don't hesitate to reach out and we can dig into it a little bit more. But those will be for your specific districts as well.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
everything you're seeing will be for your area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other agenda items? All right, over to you, Director.
Thank you, Madam President, Commission. So grateful for our wonderful staff who always has all the details on things. Excited to share with you a few different items this morning. I know I put this slide up every single week, but I just want to reiterate that this is our commitment as the team here at ACHD in coordination with you all. We want to build infrastructure and we are grateful for the opportunity to do it with our partners and continue to work to keep the public safe and to do more. Wanted to share with you a couple congratulations. This last week, Justin received the Honorable Ray LaHood Award from WTS. This really goes to a leader in transportation for the work that they do, for the care that they give to their team and all members of their team. And so want to just take a moment to recognize and congratulate Justin on that. We also, ACHD received, one of our team members received the Rosa Parks Award. And this was given to Christy Foltz-Ulrich. She is she's our senior communication and outreach specialist. She is the one who does all of the planning for our project, our public information meetings, and really works hard to make sure that all of our information can be used by anyone in the community, regardless of where they come from or how they can approach this. So just wanted to also congratulate Christy for that award. Commissioners, just wanted to share a couple things that the team is doing and working through as we work with the community in this case. This year, the plan was to do the Southeast Boise neighborhood plan that was getting ready to kick off. We've actually been in conversations with Boise State University, who actually is within that planning area, and have worked out that we will be working with one of the classes there, one of their capstone classes, to coordinate and develop that plan with them. So it will be a cooperative effort. So that's actually we're gonna start a little bit later. We'll start in January with them. That's when their class will be taking place, but we'll be able to work closely with our partners at Boise State, give some real life experience to the students there, and as well as take advantage of their knowledge and their additional resources that they can bring to the table. wanted to also share with you an effort that the team has been doing in connection with the Idaho Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. One of the changes that occurred through the federal adoption of PROAG is the implementation of audible traffic control, or temporary traffic control. And so what it is there's audible devices that will provide as someone approaches, a verbal communication on how to make your way through a detour and where that detour will go. And so our team has been looking at this. We've been meeting with our ADA committee. We've had outreach to the traffic control companies on this. And so we set up a mock closure at 5th and Washington to test this out. And so we can make sure that we tune, before this deploys fully in the field, that we are able to tune this to the needs of that community. And so we're grateful for the support of that team, and for our team, Sean, who's worked very closely with them and making sure that we have good information on how to use these tools. Our team has also been is very committed to making sure that we have opportunities to continue to recruit the best and to help the community in training and the skills. Skills USA is a competition, but with high school students and some college students, that they take some of the skills that they've developed and they go through some testing and training, and it's a competition. Our team was recently out at the Skills USA competition. We took one of our chipper box. There was need to find out why certain things weren't working when they turned the key, and other things to really test those skills. This has been extremely helpful for us. One of our current intern to hire mechanics came through this program. We actually were able to recruit her when she was in high school, working at Dennis Tech, bringing the skills that she had, and now she's into college and working quickly towards finishing that certification. And this has really been a helpful program, but just wanted to share with you the team's activities on that front. There are, as the weather warms up, there are a number of different activities that are coming up that will cause some impacts to traffic, some road closures. We're going to bring this forward to you regularly, so you can see what are the special events that are up and coming that our team is working with the different cities on in the permitting phase, just so that you are aware that there's a lot of activities going on out there, not necessarily ACHD activities, but we do participate in some of these and are involved in definitely the permitting process. As we talk about building safe, there was a project that was ongoing for a number of years. It was something that was discussed back when we widened the intersection of Meridian and Ustick Road. This is immediately adjacent to Settlers Park. There's a pathway into the neighborhood right there, immediately adjacent to the park, and people were it was far enough away that the signal wasn't really working in that case. And so our safety team went through this process, designed this, and we were able to go get this installed for the community there to make that safe route to a park much better. Another example of ultimately building together, but also building more. We've worked with the city of Kuna for a number of years. There was a relocation of a post office. There was a number of things that were occurring. This location of K and Avalon is actually where the state highway, the ACHD roads, and the local roads all come together there as you go into downtown Kuna. And so working with them, working with the community who helped fund part of this, we were able to get that signalized to make it safer for all people who are trying to access the development that has been there. So excited that that's now complete and available for the community out there. We also recently received updated population numbers for 2025 from Community Planning Association. They do these annual metrics. I historically have worked on them myself as part of that process, but back when I was there. But I just wanted to highlight this for you all, commissioners. That's a big number. That is a lot of growth that continues to happen in all parts of our community. But 572,000 in the last 15 years since 2010, that's 45% growth. In the two-county region, the number's now around 822,000. So we're quickly heading towards that $1 million or 1 million people mark. But that's the population we're here to serve, and that will have an impact on all the work we do, whether through our CIP, but also for the community as it develops in different ways. Just a few different things coming up. As a reminder, after today's commission meeting, we're excited to meet everyone out at the new Traffic Operations Center to walk you through that fantastic facility. We're also going to be taking a number of our partners, law enforcement, other our city partners out there. We're still coordinating some of the dates for all of those, but we will have law enforcement out there on the 25th, and we're working on the dates for other partners right now. We do have Kids Day scheduled for next Thursday. It may look a little bit different as we now have a traffic operations center somewhere different, but we are going to keep a lot of those things here, and we've kept the traffic management center up and running. We have stuff here for all the popular things that the kids love to come see, and we would love to, if you have children in your lives that you'd love to bring to that, please let us know. We'd love to allow them to come see the fun activities we have here, and it will still be good. We are committed to Kids Day this year and into the future, and we're still figuring out how it will all work as we move, but we're excited to have that up and coming. And then a few other public outreach efforts that are up and coming with the 8th Street extension. There's going to be a big celebration at the Jim Hall Learning Center, which is located on 8th Street up that road. And so we're going to be out there that day to give more information on the project that's coming there as well. So with that, Commission, I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioners? All right,
Okay,
thanks,
thank you.
Director. All right, with that, we'll be at ease until 12 o'clock.
From who?
Tell me what her first name is. Her last name is Paige.
Oh, yeah.
For where?
What's her name?
I don't have a page on my board.
Maybe she's got a different
Maybe
name.
ICL? Wait, she talked to you?
No, her husband, Tom Page. He's the CEO of the guy.
Oh, you mean Molly?
Molly. Is that her last name?
Yeah, she's on our, yeah. So you were talking to Tom?
Yeah, it's, I'm gonna be.
Oh, cool.
Scream.
Tom is a wonderful human. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, no.
How did you get connected?
Well, I made a contribution to. Anyway, so I asked if he knew you. He said his wife did. She was part of it. I said, "Will you tell her that it's fine?" I tried. I said, not everything.
All right, welcome everyone. It's now 12 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Thanks to all joining us in person online. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. I don't believe we have any such requests, so is there a motion to adopt or approve the agenda?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next up is our regular agenda. We've got one item. It is the Meadow Woods public hearing request for adoption. I will go ahead and open the public hearing and turn it over to Carrie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Carrie Niesel, Real Estate Management Specialist for ACHD. This is a public hearing decision briefing presentation on a proposed right-of-way vacation located at East Meadowwood Drive. Okay, so ACHD has received an application from co-applicants and a fee of $2,500. The applicants are Don and Linda Huffman and Jamie and Wendy Luderman. They want to vacate 0.13 miles of unopened right-of-way adjacent to their neighboring properties. And the right-of-way that was created by Clover Meadow Subdivision plat was done so at the time, anticipating future growth, as you can see there in yellow. Okay. This map shows the general vicinity of the proposed vacation. It's located in the city of Meridian and just adjacent to the Julius M. Kleiner Memorial Park. Okay, so here we see the site location of the vacation area lying just east of Kleiner Park. The Huffman's property is next to the vacation parcel A. That's just to the south there. And the Luderman's property is next to the vacation parcel B. Both the vacation segments are 30 feet in width, and with the installation of Kleiner Park, there's no longer any purpose for the remnant right away there. Meadowwood Drive is a dead-end street. There's no park access for vehicles through there. And now that the applicants consulted with emergency services and the city of Meridian to determine what portion of the right-of-way needed to be or to remain there and be accessible for service vehicles. That's why the right-of-way actually is not being vacated in whole, and it breaks there to create that hammerhead turnaround. Okay, so the appraised value for parcel A, the Huffman property, is approximately $82,000, and the appraised value for parcel B, the Luderman property, is approximately $90,000. And at this time, the applicants have completed all the commission and staff requirements for the vacating these right-of-way segments. Now it's the commission that determines if it is in the public's interest to vacate or not. So here are your alternatives that you can take at this time. You can accept the proposal, adopt and sign resolution 2439 authorizing the vacations, or you can deny the applicant's request and not accept resolution 2439. With that, that concludes my presentation, and I'll stand for questions.
Madam President?
Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, Carrie, do you mind going back to the map, the aerial picture?
This one?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's hard to kind of see on here, but what is the treatment in terms of like the road? And is it a landscaped yard that's been maintained that's in that right
Yes.
away?
So the areas have been licensed. It is their driveways.
Okay.
They've got a gate over one, the Huffman property has a gate to their driveway through there. They've been maintaining them since the park has gone in.
And what was the year that this development went in? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Carrie.
Appreciate it.
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
Carrie, just for my information, was the vacation, are we considering this vacation at the initiative of the property owners? They came to us
Yes.
seeking this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, thanks, Carrie. Are the applicants present want to speak on this item? Please come on up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name's Don Huffman. My address is 4035 East Meadowwood Drive, and our property is at the end of the street, west end, and on the south side. We are attending this meeting today to request the ACHD vacate the right-of-way that is directly adjacent to the west side of our property. During the construction of Kleiner Park, the perimeter fence was installed on the west boundary of the existing right-of-way. That only left a 30-foot wide strip of right-of-way and rendered that right-of-way unusable as a county road. We are assuming that ACHD has no other use for this right-of-way. I have always treated the property as if it was my own. I asked for opportunity to permanently add that strip of land to our existing property. The right-of-way has been fenced into the back of our property since around 1970. I've used the balance of the right-of-way as the access to the back of our property. The right-of-way has been maintained by me since we purchased the property in 1977. I have high standards for the level of maintenance of my property, and I have kept that same level of maintenance for the right-of-way. We are asking that ACHD vacate the subject right-of-way and deed the property to us, grant financial relief for the assessed value of the right-of-way, and have Ada County assessors add the right-of-way property to our tax roll. We began this application process back in November of last year. It is a very extensive process and took us a lot of effort, time, and $5,000 to $6,000 in fees to complete. It has been a long haul, and I would like to say that we would not have reached this point if it wasn't for the help of Carrie. She answered a lot of questions throughout the process, and we really appreciate all the guidance she provided. And that's all I had, and I just thank you for consideration and your time.
Thanks very much.
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
Mr. Huffman, could I ask a quick question? I'm not sure I heard part of what you said there. Do you have a concern about the value estimate of the property and that aspect of this agreement?
Concern as far as what? We are asking for relief for the property value.
So you're asking that in other words, that we make the transfer a zero cost transfer. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
That's from what I understand. That's been the process in the past. So just staying with that process.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Goldberg?
Yeah, I know that on very few occasions have we done a zero cost transfer, and please don't think that it happens every time.
Welcome. Please just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Wendy Luderman, and I reside at 4040 East Meadowwood Drive, directly to the north of Dawn and Linda. We are also requesting the ACHD vacate the right-of-way at the west side of our property. This right-of-way was originally meant to accommodate a possible future roadway. However, since the development of Kleiner Park and residential neighborhoods, this is no longer feasible. The right-of-way has been used and maintained by the owners of our address for over 50 years. We've cared for the property as if it was our own, installed a sprinkler system, irrigated, mowed, provided weed control. And a couple of years ago, we also put in a concrete paved driveway on part of that. Therefore, we ask for the opportunity to permanently take ownership of the right-of-way by adding it to our existing property. We request ACHD vacate and deed the right-of-way to our family as noted in the application. that they have the assessor's office add the property to our tax roll, which offers a long-term tax benefit to the county. We request the ACHD please grant financial relief and waive the appraised value of the property. Relief is requested as the right-of-way is no longer usable by the county as a possible roadway and really hasn't been for some time, especially since the development of Kleiner Park. We've been good stewards of the land and, as stated before, provided maintenance and care of the right-of-way for over 50 years. The property is much more valuable to the county as a long-term tax base. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Again, as Dawn said, Carrie's been an invaluable resource, so thank you for her time as well. Do you have any questions for me or did Dawn?
Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, do we have anybody from the public in person or online who wanted to speak on this? Okay. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, I have a question about this conditions. If we approve the request for adoption, does that automatically approve the request for relief? Okay, thank you, Steve. Then I would make a motion that we approve the request for adoption of the property as described in item number 1.
Okay, and resolution 2439.
Yes, thank you.
May I ask a question? I didn't see the answer to Kent's question. Is that the question about the relief on the cost?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, it does not. It does not automatically adopt that. It would do it at what was presented here today, at the levels and the cost that was presented here today.
Okay. Just to add my 2 cents, I recognize that the property owners have had to expend, they've incurred expenses in getting to this point and in pursuing the vacation. As a general rule, we are in favor of vacations where we can do it because, of course, we don't want to tie up right-of-way that is not likely ever to have a public need in the future. And so in general, as far as the vacation is concerned, I'm absolutely in favor of the vacation. I think on the property, well, two considerations come into play with the valuation question and the relief that's been requested. On the one hand, in the past, we have waived the price or a portion of it in cases of hardship that we've recognized in the past. But in general, we recognize that where property is vacated and added to a property owner's overall property, that increases, the presumption is it increases the value of that property. And that's the reason why the general rule is that we don't waive that amount. It would make sense to me in this case, in recognition of the costs involved in getting to this point, a partial waiver of that, I think, could be appropriate, but not an entire waiver of it. So that's something I'd be happy to discuss with the rest of the commission here.
Madam President?
Commissioner
Oh.
Pickering.
I mean, Commissioner McKinney, if that's a motion, I'd support that motion.
I think we ought to discuss it to flesh that out, though.
There's been no second. Yeah.
Madam President, Commissioners, Steve Price, General Counsel for the record. If the commission does go down the path of considering the waiver, one thing that we've done in the past when we do it is we need to have facts in the record as to the basis for your justification in granting a waiver. I just want to make sure that we get that into the record today, if that's the direction you go, partial or otherwise.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, in that case, I would be willing to modify my motion. And that is to modify, to make it so that we approve the request for adoption and resolution number 04162025, but with relief granted for the fees that they've paid us for the application.
Yeah. Is that a sufficient factual basis, council?
Well, just because of the time and the effort and the number of years that they've cared for this property, while at the same time recognizing the fairly substantial increase in the value to their property.
Commissioner Nielsen.
I have a question, maybe for, when would the value have to be received by the district? I just want to understand that process.
I'm sorry, Madam
If we
President.
either give partial or if we don't give any relief, what's the next steps from that?
Oh, from the next steps. So the order of vacation is
Vacation.
entered, and then we provide a quick claim deed, and any
Mhm.
conditions that you so desire will go through that process.
How do we capture the value? of the-
Well, the only value that we
Mhm.
would capture is for the payment of the
Mm.
loss of the right of way.
And how soon would they write the check?
Yeah,
I think
that's what I want to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. We
When are
usually
we
give
done?
120 days.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion or questions?
Madam President,
Commissioner Nielsen?
so is it just the motion is just to give them relief on the fees,
Correct.
but not, they would still have 120 days pay the full value of the vacated property?
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering?
just clarification. Carrie, is it clear how much of the total costs are fees? Is that clear on the staff side? Just want to make sure there isn't any ambiguity. That's what I thought, right? Just want to make sure.
Commissioner Gold, Commissioners, yeah, the fee for the application was $2,500. Yeah, I mean, they have their own costs of surveying and the appraisal and whatnot that went into that, but those are the hard costs that
Okay.
given.
Thank you.
Madam President and Commissioners, whenever in the past the commission has waived the fees, they've only waived the fees that they have paid to ACHD. We don't provide
Right.
cost recovery for their costs. The other point is that it would simply be an offset of the total fair market value in the event you charge them. So I think it's 90,000. We would just automatically deduct that from that total amount that they are obligated to pay us.
Madam President, I have another
Commissioner Nelson?
question. Sorry.
Steve?
Is there any relief from the 120 days or can there be a continuance or is that a hard date?
Madam President, in the past, it's typically acted as a hard date, but there's no reason that they can't come back and ask for an extension.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next up is discussion items, public communications. Do we have anybody in person or online who would like to speak to the commission? Okay, seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. We'll move on to the post-commission agenda. We've got a couple of work sessions. Up first is State Highway 16 construction update presentation by staff and Ricardo. Welcome.
Madam President and Commissioners, good afternoon. My name is Ricardo Calderon for the record, and I'm here to give you a quick update on the State Highway 16 project and the supporting projects around this area. Let's see, there's the mouse. Okay. Before you Commissioners is just the map of the current plan, the current projects and the future, the current projects and the planned projects around this area, around the Northwest Meridian, and around Highway 16. There are 7 projects on the map that you can see. Obviously, Highway 16 is here in blue, north to south. And then 4 in orange are ACHD projects that are led by ACHD. Then we have a City of Meridian project up here in green and a City of Napa-led project. I'd like to start with giving you just an update on Highway 16, where we're at with that project right now. I'm gonna be starting for Highway I-84 heading north to Franklin. And that is what it looks like right now. This bridge over I-84 is complete. And there is 4 new ramps that are being constructed, 2 of which will be flyovers over I-84. That would be these 2 right here, commissioners. Heading, and then 2 more on-ramps to Franklin Road. Heading north from Franklin to Eustis is the next 2 miles. This is just a picture of the current status of that project. It includes 3 bridges, 1 over Cherry Lane, 1 over the 5 Mile Creek, and another one is on over the Union Pacific Railroad crossing. And as you can see, 2 lanes of the freeway are also being constructed as we speak. Heading north, we get to from Franklin to Eustis. This is a view looking now south towards the freeways up here. Currently, we're working on, ITD is working on 2 on-ramps off of this interchange. And then from Eustis to Chinden, the girders over Chinden have been placed. That's basically the update on this project. The current project is still fully anticipated to be fully operational in 2027. Moving on to the projects to the east, if you will, here in orange. Those are the, like I mentioned before, ACHD projects. I'm going to start on Eustis Road from McDermott to Black Cat. This project is at 75% design complete right now. Right away, it's anticipated to be in 2026. And then construction will be starting in 2027. Heading east, the project that's currently under construction is Eustis Road between Black Cat and 10 Mile. That project is anticipated to be completed later in FY26. And then the last one that you can, it's kind of off the map here, is Eustis Road between 10 Mile to Linder. That project we're currently buying right away as we speak. And the anticipated construction for that project is this fall. So there will be some overlaps between the Black Cat project here and Linder. The last one down here at the bottom is Franklin Road between McDermott and Black Cat. This one we are anticipating to be buying right away in 2028 to 30, and construction site in the future. The last one up here in green is the one that's led by the City of Meridian. And this project is basically, they are doing a sewer lift station replacement project. They're doing a new lift station around the corner of Canada Road and McMillan. It is a 2-mile project. The first phase is doing a 30-foot deep sewer line that will completely shut down McMillan Road from Canada to Star. And the anticipated construction project is to start later this month. That's when the construction contractor is going to be mobilizing, go to Star Road, and then following this section, they'll move over from Star to McDermott. Construction is going to be a 2-year project for this project. Lastly, is this project down here between the Phyllis Canal to Oahe Storm and Eustis Road. This is an interagency cooperative agreement between ACHD, City of Nampa, and Nampa Highway District Number 1. This project, Nampa City Council approved the bid last Monday, April 7th, to Knife River. The NTP for this project is going to be no later than, well, right after July 4th weekend. That's when the contractor can start mobilizing in, obviously after the school starts, after school's out. Completion for this project here in purple will be July of 2027. With that, commissioners, there's all the projects going on. As you can see, there's 4 agencies out here having major projects with multiple years in construction. We're coordinating with all 4 of us to be able to handle the public as questions come in, calls, communication, traffic control, and detours. With that, I stand for any questions.
Madam President?
Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo. This is really helpful. Could you remind us, I think also just for the public too, what the scope and like scale of the Highway 16 project is? It's, it's widening. So can you just
Yeah.
provide some of that context?
Definitely. So it's a winding project from I-84 to essentially Highway 44. That's going to be 2 lanes in each direction, multiple overpasses and bridges. There will be on and off ramps at Franklin, Ustick, and Chinden. The other 2, McMillan and Chariot, will not be on ramps, it's just an overpass. Yeah, construction's going well. They anticipate to be complete by 2027.
So I have a series of questions. So my next question is, how much is how much has been just on the ITD side of this? How much is that the entire project that you're describing right now?
Commissioner Pickering, the entire construction cost of this project?
Not including us.
I will need to get back to you unless someone else
Do we have a
knows.
ballpark?
Commissioner. Just,
No, I think it was,
Madam President, members of the commission, we can get you exact numbers, but this is north of $200 million.
That's what I was
I think it's
thinking.
closer to 300 million, to be honest, which is kind of round numbers for all the different, they've done it in phases, and so it's a little hard to track all the costs. They started with kind of a phase 1, but now our understanding is their intention when this is finished is for it never to be interim. They were going to do some interim intersections and some interim things like that. No, this is going to be a freeway with interchanges all the way up and down the corridor, around 300 million.
I think when we can get that number out, I think that'll be really helpful, because I think that the problem, I think to your point, Ricardo, as soon as I was looking at the timing of these different projects in and around it, I think helping assign the level of investment that is going in, not just on the ITD side, but, also quantifying the ACHD investment, City of Nampa, City of Meridian. I think that helps folks kind of wrap their arms around the scale of what's happening. Just a kind of a suggestion. And then I'm not familiar with the city boundaries, and that actually kind of caught me off guard with City of Meridian having
Yeah.
jurisdiction right there. So could you actually remind, like, where is that boundary?
Commissioner Pickering, as far as the city boundary, I'm not quite sure, but the Ada County boundary is County Ada Road
Right.
and north of Ustick.
But I mean, in terms of Meridian, does it kind of like loop around? Like, that just feels a little weird.
Yeah, commissioners, it is a little odd up in this part of the
Yeah.
county. So Ada, which is the Ada Canyon County boundary for this section between Ustick and 2026, is essentially the City of Meridian's impact area boundary also. So, but when you get down to Ustick, we call it the 4 square mile area. These 4 square miles out in this zone are kind of jutting out a part of the City of Meridian. This area down here below that is all part of City of Nampa's impact area.
Okay.
So the boundary goes down, over, and then follows McDermott, which
That's
is
what I wondered. Okay.
typically considered the county boundary, except for up in that
Yeah.
northern 4 square mile area.
That I appreciate that. And then Ricardo, I'm sure this is probably evolving, so I just want to prompt you all, like, I know obviously we've learned a lot with like different agency coordination as it relates to downtown construction. This is a little different because of the space in between, these routes to get around this construction. How are you all coordinating with these organizations and cities, agencies in a way that is more mindful of the fact that the impacts are going to be felt differently than they have with other big projects that we've had?
Yeah, Commissioner Pickering, we actually have a monthly meeting with all 4 agencies and contractors where we talk about the progress of the projects, where they're at, and how traffic's being detoured so that we're not running into each other's detours. It is very intense, right? I mean, and it changes constantly. I do want to say that up here, we don't have any development, that might be happening or might get approved by City of Meridian. But we are constantly looking at the traffic detours. ITD has a consultant on board that's handling all the public involvement, so we're going through them as well. That's what we've discussed so far.
And final question, Madam President. I think that's fabulous to hear. I think what I've noticed is, and it's a simple thing, but it's easy to get lost in the shuffle, is like not clear markings, which project is whose. So, making sure that there is clear identification that this is the ITD portion, right? If there's a problem with this, this is ITD versus ACHD versus, yeah. So,
Sorry.
yeah, so I think wherever we can with those, construction contractors that are doing the maneuvering around these projects, making sure that there's clear communication about which project we're talking, that folks are working around is helpful.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, hi, Ricardo. Thanks. Yeah, kind of on that vein, first question is, are the road improvements, is the goal with everyone to have those done when the interchanges are open? Or is that too optimistic?
Yeah, Commissioner Mister, it's a little too optimistic.
Is it cool?
We won't be done with all of them out there by 2027. We'll be starting, like I said, the last portion of Linder, our Ustick Road. That's when it's gonna,
Nice.
where's my mouse? Yeah. So this,
Yeah.
if this is on track, which it is, 2027, they'll be complete. That's when we're gonna be starting this section of Ustick, right? This should be done. McMillan should be done. But then Franklin, we will not have started. We'll be completing this section of Linder. So immediate around Highway 16, there'll be some construction still going on, unfortunately.
So, Madam President, I think this is of such a scope and scale, as Commissioner Pickering referred to. I think there should be some discussion, if it's not already planned, and probably under ITD's consultant, that we have, Rita's not going to cut it, of what the maybe weekly or monthly traffic pattern is going to be in this large area. So I think there needs to be some discussion of more frequent mapping for the public, because there's a lot of information here, and even Rita gets a little busy, but something really clear and concise, whose project is what's open now, for, there may not be a lot of development, but there's a lot of traffic that is going to be affected. And so I would just, if that's not already in their scope, I mean, it really needs to be very frequent updates. And that's something that we could, all the partners would provide that information to their publics. So,
Thank you, Commissioner. This is noted.
Yeah.
We'll discuss that with
yeah.
the whole group.
Madam
Commissioner
President?
McKinney?
Yeah, Ricardo, just one quick question. The question I get asked the most is, when is this going to be open? And you've talked about the date of 2027. I just want to clarify though, is ITD planning for a phased opening of it, or is it all going to open at once?
Commissioner McKinney, it's going to be open all at once. The plan is not to open it phase by phase. I've asked that as well, because there's sections that you can see that are close.
Right.
But right now, that's not to say that it can't change, but right now the plan is to open it entirely in 2027.
Okay. And are we talking about the beginning of the year, the end of the year, the middle of the year? I realize that, construction always takes longer than we expect. I understand that. But what's the current estimate for that?
Can I get back to you with that, Commissioner?
Okay.
I don't know exactly.
All right. So I'll just tell
a big
people
deal.
2027.
2027. That's what I was told by ITD.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Madam President?
Commissioner Pickering?
Another question, Ricardo. Obviously, the traffic, this isn't nuanced because, we're not responsible for state highways, right? But the folks that are using this infrastructure typically come from, Gem County, Canyon County, and, folks from Ada County going into those places as well. In terms of, a multi-county conversation and impacts, is that being led also by this consultant?
Commissioner Pickering, yes, we're meeting, like I mentioned, monthly. And now that we have this project with the city and AMPA and highway number 1, we are definitely working on the messaging so everybody knows what's going on with this project. And And like we've talked about who to call, right? Whose project it is, that's going to be ironed out, very shortly.
Yeah, I just think, folks from Emmett, right? Like they need,
Yep.
ITD needs to
Got
be
it.
their person, right? So,
Mhm.
because that's how they get down into Canyon or Ada County. So making sure that leaders in Emmett and other places in Gem County know who to
Yeah.
call. is
People
really
in Star
important.
as well, we've been
Yes.
coordinating with them as well.
Yep. My other question too is, this is really helpful and super timely. Obviously, it's really great that we have staff to staff coordination going on with those monthly meetings. Sometimes there is a disconnect, especially with the scale of this. Sorry to keep saying that, but I think there's also it's going to be important for the process and insights and decisions made from that monthly meeting translated to various municipalities and other agencies. So what is kind of the plan for that communication and structure to unfold?
Currently, Commissioner Pickering, we do have our meetings, and our communication department is also part of that meeting as well. Erin Johansson is part of that meeting as well. So we've been coordinating with her on that. And they do update our websites. Is that answering your question? I
I'm
mean,
wondering if it's more of like a standing work session item on the City of Meridian council meeting. So kind of exploring what type of, putting them in the driver's seat around what type of information that they want to hear at the elected level. Cause I think that that can help us get ahead of, we didn't know this was happening, or, you know what I mean? Especially when people are like, oh, this is so impactful to us.
Mhm.
Having all of the different electeds on the same page can help prevent against some of that.
Yeah, Madam President and Commissioner Pickering, we are absolutely open to doing that. So far, what we've been doing is attending those meetings, attending the quarterly meetings as well, and then doing direct emails to the mayors and chief of staffs or their communications folks to make sure that they're up to date. But some of that focuses on what's happening in their own city.
Right.
And as you've pointed out, they're being impacted by what's happening outside of their city. So we can certainly do that. I don't know if it would be a regular standing one or just as we're identifying things that are coming up, getting those on their agendas. We're happy to do that.
So I think it's great that the emails are happening, but oftentimes the public,
Yes.
that misses kind of that opportunity to also inform the
Absolutely.
public.
Yeah. Madam President and Commissioner Pickering, we also have been discussing the possibility of tagging on to one of their quarterly meetings and doing that as an open public forum that we would be at. We think it makes the most sense for ITD to host that.
Yeah.
But having us there, having the city of Nampa there, the city of Meridian there, and being able to discuss all of the projects at once. I don't know if they're able to, I know our teams were working on coordinating that. I don't know if they've had the opportunity to do so yet. But just ensuring that we have something in place that the community members can come to and get more information on all of the projects happening and help them understand, because it is confusing and complicated. And behind the scenes, we've been trying to stay just in touch with each other to know who we're supposed to be forwarding things to when we get things to the wrong agency, because it will happen and we know that. And it's just knowing who the quick point of contact is, not resending somebody somewhere else and just getting them in contact with each other.
And I'm wondering, just a small little thing too, it's maybe, automating some of those teleses too, right? If it's, in this vicinity, right? So it's, kind of can be off to the side and not part of the other bucket of inquiries that we get, right? To kind of streamline some of that. But anyway, thank you. That sounds great.
Thanks.
Commissioner Nielsen.
Hey, Ricardo, do you know if it's in the scope for ITD to put a permanent traffic counter on this new segment? I'm always curious. I mean, this will be our last freeway segment for a while, and I'm really, I think it'd be important to capture information. And I'm not sure if we have traffic counts. This will be probably when I'm in my 70s before, but I think it's always valuable to, after it's all done, is to measure, is the traffic matching what we thought it would be doing? So.
yeah,
Anyway.
Commissioner Nielsen and commissioners, I'm not quite sure, but I can definitely
Yeah.
inquire about that and report back to you
Okay.
if that's going to happen.
Yep, thank you. It might be just maybe for Justin, that might be something to think about as a potential compass study, You won't be retired by then, Justin.
Commissioners, I did have, I just want to hit one note. We've talked a lot about the projects and all the status and everything. I did want to talk a little bit about money and how that relates into this whole conversation. As you're aware, ACHD, in support of a lot of these efforts, several years ago received a direct allocation of approximately $36 million from the state of Idaho under the Strategic Initiatives Program. We have been using those funds to support these projects. It's very likely that the majority of those funds will be essentially expended just on the USTIC corridors alone. When we got the 36 million, we've had lots of cost escalations and other things occur since then. So that's kind of the current plan. I am happy to report, though, that ACHD anticipates receiving another approximately $19.8 million in the upcoming fiscal year through the Strategic Initiatives Program. This was part of the state's legislative efforts this last legislative session. That money will flow through ITD and its Highway Distribution Fund calculation. The way that works, the state of Idaho allocated about $275 million to strategic initiatives. 110 million of that was set aside for the locals. By formula, ACHD receives about 18%, which turns out to be about $19.8 million. So, as you know, this program was created by the state of Idaho to support locals and the impacts of highway expansion on the local network. So today I wanted to kind of, I'm not asking you to make any decisions, but I wanted to give you kind of a staff's thoughts on this as we go into this next budget cycle. This $19.8 million, you know, there's a lot that we could do with that. Here's three things. We're taking kind of a three-pronged approach of how we believe at least a portion of this money could be allocated, certainly at the commission's discretion, but wanted to throw this out as an early discussion. Number one, we do believe it would be prudent to begin the design and implementation of the Linder-Chinden to State Highway 44 project. This is a critical river crossing in our valley. It connects two state highways. It's a high priority project where there has been a lot of traffic increase. One of the largest traffic increases in the last 10 years on an arterial roadway has happened on Linder. I live out in that area. I know Commissioner McKinney, you live out in that area. It's been amazing to watch. We've actually had issues with access to the park when the, you know, the closures have occurred. So once again, I'm not giving you solid numbers today, but what I'm saying is begin that process using a portion of this money. That would be the design, getting that started in fiscal year 2026. This is a large and substantial design project. There are 5 bridges. It's a major widening project also, and there's several environmental factors that we have to take into consideration in the River Valley. So this will be an expensive design. Oh, I hate to put numbers out there, but probably north of $2 million, probably more than that. It's going to be expensive just to get the design going. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we believe it would be prudent, considering NAMPA's recent award of the bid for their project that they are leading on USTIC. We're a little short on our end. We already received $7 million through an additional strategic initiatives grant a few years ago to support that project. That money has been in the bank. We're working through that. We're actively buying the right of way. But with the recent bid award from the city of Nampa on our end, we're about $2.5 million to $3 million short from that $7 million. We think it's reasonable to take a portion of the 19.8 million and make that project whole. Essentially, we have options there. We can keep it whole, which includes the full pedestrian bike facilities on both sides of the road, our side and Nampa side, or we would need to come back to you if you cap us at 7, and we're going to say, okay, we need to reduce project scope to keep it at that original $7 million. Staff's recommendation in a situation like this would be, it's better if we're in there doing the construction and we're going to do this project, let's do it right, let's do it once. Nampa has been doing a really good job administering this project, and so that additional 2.5 to 3 million we think is a fair cost to us in this situation. So that would be the second thing. The third thing, We believe it's prudent to support along with our impact fee program, which we hope this project will be added at your adoption of the impact fee program coming up now, would be the continuation of the Franklin Road projects. So those projects, it's a very important project as part of all these connections. Ricardo showed it there. As of right now, we do have the design primarily complete, but the right-of-way and construction, those have been a challenge to find funding. So we believe moving forward on that project and programming that for construction in the integrated 5-year work plan, using a combination of the 19.8 million and impact fees, which it will be eligible for once the new CIP is adopted, is a potentially prudent way to move forward on those projects. There's a lot going on out here. It is a lot of money, but in essence, with the 36, the 7, and the 19.8, the state has provided a lot of funding to support this area. And our essential position on this would be continue to use that funding to support all of these projects and to begin the Linder project, which is another critical connection between two state highways. Once again, no decision required today, but I wanted to give you kind of here's what we're thinking as we bring forward the budget associated with next year and our 5-year plan. That would be the framework of how we would approach the additional 19.8 million.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yeah, I was just thinking impact fees right before you said that. So when will we know how much of these corridors, relative to the CIP, how much of the cost will be impact fee eligible?
So we're working that
Yeah.
right now, Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen, as we finalize the impact fee program. We are in the next big step in that is the costs and the percentages eligible. Typically, a road widening project historically has hovered in that 60 to 70% eligibility range. Intersection projects are in the 90% plus range. They're much higher a level of impact fee eligibility. We discussed that a little bit at the last, last work sessions. So that's kind of how it plays out. The one thing about all these projects is the last time we updated our impact fee schedule and our project costs that are associated with the impact fee schedule was in 2020. We've had a lot of changes in costs since 2020 occur across the nation, not just here. So we anticipate some significant increases to the cost estimates associated with all of our projects within the CIP, including these projects. We have prioritized the state funding over every other funding source with the money that we've been given. But some of these projects are impact fee eligible, and there can be maybe a combined use of those funds to make it happen. Ultimately, we'll work all that through the budget process with the commission.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, thanks very much, Justin. Okay, we will move on to work session number 2, which is the Regional Safety Action Plan update. And welcome Dave Rader and Hunter.
All right. Madam President, Commissioners, thanks for having me this afternoon. My name is Hunter Mulhall. I'm a principal planner with Compass. This is the 3rd time I'll be sharing the information from the Regional Safety Action Plan with this group. I briefed you all in 2023 when we were notified we won the award to do this plan. I came in about midway and shared some of the status on the project then, and I'm pleased to be here today to share with you the final results of the plan. So I will be just giving you a high-level overview, talk a little bit about the vision and goals, and then what this plan means for ACHD and its Compass members. I'll let Dave, your very own Dave Rader, get into some of the details of how ACHD will be implementing or using some of this plan, and then get into next steps, what comes after this plan. So a little bit of background on the plan, just to remind you all, refresh you, is that this plan was funded through the Safe Streets and Roads for All federal grant program. It was established through the bipartisan infrastructure bill that set aside $5 billion over 5 years to do transportation safety planning and implementation projects. So as I mentioned, we were awarded in 2023, Compass was, and we kicked this off in 2023, and we just recently adopted, the Compass Board of Directors recently adopted this plan early this year. So Compass really took on this role of taking on this plan because we reached out to our member agencies and we asked, what kind of plans our partners had in place. And none of them had a plan that met all the requirements of the Safe Streets and Roads for All program to go for the implementation awards. So those are the ones to actually implement and build infrastructure. So Compass took on that role. And by participating in that planning process, ACHD, Compass, and its member agencies are now eligible to go for implementation funds through the Safe Streets program. So to dive into a little bit of the details of what's in the plan, the overall guiding principles come from the Federal Highways Administration's Safe Systems approach. This is a framework developed after years of studying other countries and how they've reduced fatalities and serious injuries on their roadways. The approach aims to create a redundant system of safety countermeasures to prevent serious injuries and fatalities. So redundant meaning that should any one of the countermeasures fail, there's something else in place there to reduce the risk of fatality or serious injury. It's a mind shift from traditional safety planning in that we're really focusing in on those fatal and serious injury crashes and reducing those numbers rather than overall crash prevention. And there's less emphasis on people's choices and understanding that people are fallible. How do we reduce the consequences when these mistakes are made on our roadways so that they're not life-altering injuries or fatalities? And so the Safety Action Plan includes a resolution from the Compass Board to commit to eliminate these fatalities and serious injuries on our roadway. This kind of commitment is compliant with the Safe Streets and Roads for All program and really shows that commitment to continue to pursue this vision and goals established in the plan, which are the Treasure Valley unified by commitment to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on the roadways through innovation. So not being afraid to try new things, collaboration, working with our partners for best practices, lessons learned, education that includes the public and our own staff and training and best practices, and engagement. And that means continuing to show up to these conversations and be part of the conversation. So we realize that zero is a lofty goal and vision. So we set an interim target to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways by 50% over the next 30 years. That's in line with what we saw in our research for other countries that have gone all in on the safe systems approach. And so we just felt that was an appropriate interim target for our region. The final plan is a summary of 5 very detailed, lengthy technical memos. This is the digest version and the final plan, and it's broken into 5 different chapters. The first talking a little bit about that resolution, the vision and goals, why we're doing this plan. The second chapter goes into the safe systems approach I mentioned and the guiding principles and how we could put those into practice. The third talks about what's causing the fatal and serious injury crashes in our region and what types of crashes we should be focusing on and targeting, and locations as well. The fourth talks about how this plan was developed and who participated. We had over 40 staff members from over 24 agencies participate in this plan. Your very own Matt Deegan and Dave Rader were an integral part of that. And then the plan lays out an action plan or a roadmap of strategies for how do we fulfill this vision. And so to get into a little bit about what questions or what does this plan mean for ACHD, this plan really answers 3 hard questions about transportation planning, transportation safety planning, and it answers the where, the what, and the how of transportation safety. So where should we improve safety first? We have finite resources. We need to spend our public dollars the best we can with the biggest impact on safety. So diving into that crash data analysis and identifying intersections and roadways with a history of serious and fatal injuries, as well as identifying locations that have risky roadway characteristics or characteristics that we found to contribute to a higher risk of fatal and serious injuries. So that analysis was put into a web-based GIS tool that's available to all of our member agencies to use. So that was the first part that this plan, the question this plan answered. The next was the what do we do? And so understanding what's causing serious and fatal injuries in our region, we built a tailored countermeasure toolkit to address those types of crashes and those types of risks on our roadways. That tool is available to our member agencies and ACHD as well. There's a lot of recommendations on types of infrastructure countermeasures, as well as best practices for planning, programming, and policy. Putting those two things together, the crash analysis and the high injury network, or those high risk locations, and the countermeasure toolkit, we built concepts for safety projects, or put together concepts for safety projects for each one of the Compass member agencies that were participating. For ACHD, that means that there was 7 different projects identified in the plan in Ada County. So Dave will get a little bit more into that for his part of this presentation. The last part was, how do we do this? So the roadmap on how we implement this vision. So there's a list of actions that we will continue to pursue. It also talks about how are we going to pay for this, because we know we're fiscally constrained. There's opportunities out there. So just highlighting what those opportunities are and how we can get this done. So Dave will talk a little bit more about this, but I just want to highlight the projects in Ada County that were identified in the plan. There was 3 location-specific projects that were focused around intersections and roadway segments in specific areas. In Boise, Fairview Avenue, Garden City on Chinden Boulevard, Meridian on Overland Road. And then there was 4 systemic type projects looking at filling infrastructure gaps in the bike and pedestrian infrastructure. And those were in the communities of Eagle, Cuna, and Star, and also the Highway District put together a concept to fill in some of those critical gaps in your jurisdiction. So how can ACHD support the implementation of this vision? I think this embracing the safe systems approach, it's a proven framework. There's lots of good guidance on there on how to implement it. The plan includes a lot of those references and that information. Make sure that safety is an objective for all applicable projects. Well, we need to be asking, if we're going in and doing a project, how does this make our roads safer? I know, consider pursuing the implementation funds. This is the reason why we wanted to position you all to take advantage of this opportunity, is so go for it. And then also continue to dedicate your staff time to have those conversations on Compass work groups and committees, and then your all engagement on the board. And then we'd like feedback too. We see this as a cyclical plan. We're going to probably see some changes here in the next 5 years. We want to make sure that we're keeping our data fresh, our strategies fresh. So we want to hear what we can do better next time. So always take criticism there. So for Compass and the safety working group, or the group of stakeholders that put this plan together, Compass plans to officially charter this work group as one of its regular committees or work groups, a standing group, to continue to work through that list of action items identified in the plan. So some examples are, how do we improve safety in our capital planning process? We're holding an education series about road safety audits next month. And then talking a little bit about what we're seeing you all already do is incorporating safety into maintenance projects. We want to hear from you all and share those lessons learned with some of our other agencies across the valley. We're going to continue to do public education. There's a really good campaign that was developed through one of our public participation work groups called Good Move out there. It's about, it's a positive, reinforcement behavioral campaign on our roadways. I think we need a little bit of positive reinforcement out there. We'll keep working, and we've already started the budget to refresh that tool and crash analysis. And then we're here to support grant applications and pursuing other federal funding opportunities. And I'll probably stand for questions until after Dave's through. But.
Yeah, Madam President.
Commissioner Pickering.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter, for this presentation. And how often is your working group providing updates to the Compass board?
So we do not have an official group yet.
How have you been communicating this work?
Okay, so
to
that's,
the board?
yes, that's a good question. Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. I think we've briefed our technical advisory committee and our Compass board 3 or 4 times throughout the process of the plan development.
Okay, well, I think obviously I take this plan super seriously, and I really appreciate the work that staff, our staff and your staff have done to pull this all together, but I think, I mean, I just have to say this, it's a little disheartening to see or not see Compass actually defend against some of the legislation that actually makes it harder to do what this plan is describing that we should accomplish, right? There was no leadership. This is not at you, it's the board. There was no leadership from Compass translating the findings from this report to legislation that's making it harder to do safer projects. So I think clearly there's a disconnect. So there should be some type of, coordination, better communication about the impacts that legislation like 1140 and 44 have on things like you've described. Because I think the beauty of this report, right, it's baked in evidence, your expertise, right? And I think oftentimes and looking at some of the cities that are mostly impacted by that, they don't really quite know what this means for them, this legislation that just passed. And I think having an honest conversation about, hey, these are the solutions that we hope you can accomplish, but now we're hamstrung. So however board members that are on Compass can, elevate this report and explain kind of the nuances and why we need leadership from the Compass board to support transportation agencies to make safer projects would be wise, in my opinion.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. So to charter this committee, this will be put in the UPWP starting October 1. And so before then, a charter will be developed. I think that's an opportunity to put those expectations of what we want from this working group. And as part of that, because I don't think I have all 10,000 criteria in my brain anymore, but in terms of the TIP project selection criteria, is it going to be updated? I know there's always safety, but something specific to the findings of this action plan? Will that affect the TIP criteria?
Madam President,
Yeah.
Commissioner Nelson, it's already been done. We're
Okay.
already wrapping up the high injury network and the tools and
Yeah.
the countermeasures. We look for consistency with our planning efforts when
Yeah.
we accept our project applications and we score projects that are in line with our plans prior.
So just to follow up, Madam President, so when the draft charter, when will that go to the Compass board? Do you know?
I don't have a date yet.
Okay, sometime this summer
It will
probably.
for the next planning cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hunter, can you speak a little bit to next steps with the Compass board in relation to this, and if there's something in between what Commissioner Nielsen is describing? And
Yeah. So, Madam President, for the Compass board, there is some performance measures tied to this plan. I would plan to brief the board each year on how we're performing and tracking towards meeting the goals of this plan. I think Commissioner Nielsen mentioned we've already made some policy changes at Compass to ensure the data that's baked in this plan is in our project selection and criteria. So other ways that you can see we wrap this into policy, open to recommendations for staff, but it's up to us to continue to have those conversations through those work groups, come up with some action out of those and brief you with progress.
Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, one other thing, just as I think of it, is, as we saw with the legislature, there's a lot of education. And so are there any, I can think there might be some really good strategic topics for the education series and to target audiences of legislators and others on things like the red light camera, proven safety efforts that regions have done that have demonstrable safety results, and those types of topics. I think that would be something to focus on as well. It is a kind of a whole 360. There's projects that we do, but I think the education in advance of that for decision makers and law enforcement, everybody else, I think would be should be thought through. What should we what do we need to know first? So,
Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen, yes, we always try to have a safety education. At least every year we do one of our several education series on safety. That's always a focus. And a couple of years we had, I think it was Arlington, Virginia, come in and talk about their Vision Zero and the progress that they've made, which was pretty impressive there. So we'll continue to have those conversations and bring in those outside ideas and groups.
right, any other questions for Hunter? All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, Dave Rader, Supervisor of Accessibility and Mobility. I'm happy to be here today to provide you with an update on the Regional Safety Action Plan. So ACHD has already taken steps to put the Regional Safety Action Plan to use. We will walk through some examples of how ACHD can and is using the plan. As Hunter mentioned, the Regional Safety Action Plan produced the High Injury Crash Network map. The interactive map displays locations where there is a higher probability of fatal and serious injuries based on roadway and intersection characteristics. ACHD can use this tool in its planning processes to ensure these areas are being addressed with appropriate safety countermeasures through project development. To be a useful tool, data will need to be updated on a regular basis, and Compass is planning on doing that. Every agency involved with the Regional Safety Action Plan had a chance to develop a priority project, which may be used by each agency to support Safe Streets for All grant applications for planning or implementation. ACHD's priority project focused on safe connections to schools. Here we see a snippet of ACHD's priority project from the Regional Safety Action Plan. The project focuses on creating safe connections to schools within each partner agency's jurisdictions and project requests directly from CUNA, West Ada, and Boise school districts. Elements of this project include filling sidewalk gaps, crosswalk enhancements, low-stress bikeway connections, and enhanced pedestrian crossings. Compass submitted a Safe Streets for All supplemental planning grant on behalf of both Ada and Canyon County. This grant was awarded to Compass in September of 2024. The $276,000 grant award will be used to develop a system-wise prioritized plan for installing leading pedestrian intervals, accessible pedestrian signals, and other low-cost crosswalk enhancements. This effort is being led by Compass with ACHD staff involvement and is currently pending agreement with FHWA. So Overland Road between Orchard and Vista Road between Overland and Rose Hill are federally funded projects. ACHD is currently pursuing a 2025 Safe Streets for All implementation grant to supplement funding needed for the Overland Road and Vista Road projects. This grant will capitalize on ACHD's intent to improve safety at all signalized intersections and leverage plans already in place to implement LPI and ADA improvements. ACHD is seeking $5 million for the implementation of these safety countermeasures, and this grant submission is due in June of 2025. With the Regional Safety Action Plan in place, the door opens up for ACHD to pursue Safe Streets for All funding for years to come. Additionally, this plan will allow ACHD to support partner agencies in the development of their priority projects. I've included a snippet from a press release from the Sean Duffy, Secretary of the Department of Transportation, to emphasize that safety is still a priority of the current administration. With that, I will stand for questions.
Commissioner Pickering?
Madam President, thank you, Dave. This is really helpful. I noticed, could you explain like why those projects on Overland are in the, like why those projects right now?
Sure. Yeah. So Overland Road is on the High Injury Crash Network map. Sorry, Madam President, Commissioner Pickering. Overland Road is on the High Injury Crash Network map. We have some shovel-ready projects with safety countermeasures already planned that staff believe would be a very competitive grant based on other grants already awarded throughout the nation. In addition to that, we don't have enough federal dollars programmed right now to cover the needs for those projects based on cost escalations
estimates have come in high. We need more funding for those projects. So those things combined is why we decided to move forward with this 2025 implementation grant.
I think that's really helpful. But I think it would be really good to have another update at some point,
Okay.
diving more into the map and just also Hunter's points around these are the high fatality or high concerned spots. Cause I noticed like looking at the map, and we've seen this with, city of Boise coming in, in my district alone, like it lights up a lot. Right. And so I think every time we see there's a lot of need and all across the whole county, but consistently I've seen, oh, we're going to go in this district, and we avoid some of the really big ones that keep getting pushed down the road that happen to be in my district. So I'd like to know more about, understanding the fiscal landscape too. I understand that is just kind of how are we approaching these, high need areas that are really dangerous, making sure that we're mindful of, district by district support and fairness. And then just kind of getting a sense of like how you guys are approaching some of that funding would be helpful.
Okay. To answer your question, so the plan does allow other municipalities to submit S4A application grants. So we would be there to hear those partner agencies with their safety projects and there to support them through that process.
Fabulous. That's great to hear.
Dave, kind of building off of that, can you speak a little bit to what that ongoing effort with partner agencies and Compass looks like and grant opportunity coordination into the future? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so Madam President, partner agencies have reached out to both Compass and us with interest in pursuing grants. Right now it's Boise State University. We haven't heard from the city of Boise, who previously reached out for the last application cycle. So as those requests come in, either through Compass or through us, we're coordinating with those agencies. So at this time, we're only aware of Boise State University's interest in pursuing a 2025 implementation grant. That might be complicated by the recent legislation.
Commissioner Nelson.
I guess part of this, we're going in and we're fixing places that, what are we learning? If we're fixing issues on Overland, are we still creating those situations on other roads as we design them? I guess I want some audit of what do we feel is going to be needed on Overland to reduce injuries? And then how do we, looking back at our own policies, to make sure we're not still doing the same thing again? It'll have to get fixed in the future. So I've kind of, one thing I'd ask Dave, if I could get a PDF of the grant application, I think that'll get me up to speed on what the objectives and the issues are. That would be really helpful. And then the other part of all the safety discussion, especially with Hunter here and Compass, I was finally glad to see, it was after I was away, after my probably decades of being on Compass committees, the board finally adopted off the top for safe routes to school. So I just want to make sure that non-infrastructure is important as well in that time. I want to make sure we look at that and get good information as on the Compass board of keeping that number real, keeping an index to cost, because it's always been kind of, I don't know, just no low ball or whatever, but I really want to make sure that we have a good number going into the UPWP and the TIP for that time as well, especially with the implementing this program, especially working with all the school districts as well. We put in these infrastructure projects, but as the county grows and there's more kids to teach about safe walking and biking to school, I really want to know that we're really supporting that effort, that education effort as well. So that's just my 2 cents.
No, that's great feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you both. Yeah, I think it's really exciting that the plan has been adopted by the board. There's obviously a lot of continued opportunities to learn and refine and implement. And so, yeah, look forward to that on both the Compass side and ACHD side. All right, that is all for our agenda today, except for we have a tour with the Traffic Operations Center. Thank you.